Shadow of the Noose was the rather chilling title of an 8-part drama series which ended on BBC Two last night. It centred on the legendary Victorian defence lawyer Edward Marshall Hall, a flamboyant character who would have been as much at home on a stage as in a courtroom. Hall's cases often involved much intrigue. In last night's episode, he became involved in the case of the infamous Dr. Crippen. Here, he returns to the scene of the crime, where the body of Dr. Crippen's wife was discovered.
As he adjusts the covers to make her snug, his hand touches her cheek. Ice cold. He strikes a match, holds it close. The flame does not move, no breath. And her eyes are open, fixed and staring into his. He utters a cry, backs into the hall. Ethel appears in the doorway. She sees the terror in his eyes. He tells her she must leave. She refuses. They argue, but she insists. Oh, if he could just once have stood up to a woman. You see, if she had done as he had asked and left, he could have dressed, gone into the street, found a policeman, told him his wife had died of an overdose. And the shadow of the noose would not be falling on him now.
Well, with us in our London studio is Richard Cooper, writer of Shadow of the Noose. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning to you.
Is Marshall Hall your hero?
Very much so, very much so. He's a very heroic character, not just in his appearance. I mean, the man was very tall, very handsome, very striking man. Not just in that, though, but in his devotion to his clients, which overrode everything. He'd give anything to try to secure a favourable verdict for his clients. He was intensely kind, very loyal to his friends. Oh, he was a great man, very much a hero of mine, yeah.
And is that why you became so interested in him? Do you think there just aren't enough of his like around these days?
Well, there seems to be a bit of a shortage of heroes, it's true. Yeah. I think the Marshall Halls are always a little bit scarce on the ground. And I became interested in Marshall Hall, I think, because of these qualities, but also because he, in the courtroom, was an actor. And I used to be an actor myself. I'm now a playwright. So it's that theatricality that really, in a sense, gave me an in to him. He wasn't a lawyer in the sense of the term of knowing law. In fact, in court, he would often say to his junior, oh, there's some law in this, you'll have to speak about it, I don't know anything about law. You know, he didn't know much about law at all, but he did know about human nature.
Right. Monica Charlton wants to speak to you now, Richard. Monica Charlton calling from Richmond. Hello, Monica.
Hello.
What's your question about Shadow of the Noose?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say how very much I enjoyed the programme. I thought it was wonderful. I'd like to know how closely based on actual court proceedings was Mr. Cooper's script. And I'd also like to ask, I'm very intrigued by this. What background information does he have for assuming some of the rather points that I've never heard before in the case of, say, the artist murder case, which was about the last but one ago, and Dr. Crippen last night.
Well, these are two interesting cases, in as much as in the first case, the case of Robert Wood, Hall, of course, believed in the man's innocence at the time. And it was only towards the end of his life when someone said to him, all those people you defended, were they all innocent? He said, oh, yes, absolutely, of course they were, of course they were. And then he stopped and thought for a moment, and he said, but I'm not certain about Robert Wood. I'm not sure about him. With benefit of hindsight, he wasn't so sure. Now, I had to then think, what could have made Hall unsure at the last? And I thought that possibly it would have to do with the alibi that Wood had set up. And if that alibi, in fact, could be proved to be a point against Wood rather than for him, then there would indeed be doubt. And so I did cast doubt upon the alibi, and therefore I brought events forward. So Hall is now saying, just after the trial, in effect, he's saying, my God, he did it.
Well, was that the largest piece of dramatic licence that you took, Richard, do you suppose?
I suppose it was, in a sense, yes. And, of course, with the Crippen case, that was a case that Hall, which was last night's episode, as you know, that was a case that Hall was expected to take on. He expected to take it on, and we're only told that there was an argument between his clerk, Edgar Bowker, and the briefing solicitor about the fee. Now, again, one had to push a bit harder than that, because Hall was not the sort of man to decline a brief because of the size of the fee. That was never important.
That's the danger of dealing with true stories, isn't it?
Yes,
because
that's
people
right.
want every detail to be true, but of course you can't make it like that.
You can't. No, you have to invent. You have to invent.
Christopher Trace is calling from London. A well-known name, Christopher. Hello.
Good morning to you both.
Hello.
Good morning, Christopher.
Richard, congratulations.
Thank you
echo
very
the
much.
words of Margaret of Richmond.
That's kind of you.
How long did your research take you?
All in all, I suppose about 2 years. From beginning the project until last night when we drew it to a conclusion. So it's about 2 years, but that's 2 years spent doing nothing else but reading about, thinking about, writing about this wonderful man. So it is, yes, it's been quite a long haul this week.
Christopher, you are the Christopher Trace, are you not? Ex-presenter of Blue Peter.
That's right.
What's your interest in the law now?
Well, I'm studying law at the moment, but not criminal law, civil law. I think if I studied criminal law, I'd be a bit more of a rumpole.
Well, you've had the training, haven't you, on television?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I get back to Richard a second?
Yes, please do.
You've obviously got right under the skin of Marshall Hall. How do you think he would have reacted to Lord Mackay's proposed reforms, which are going through now?
Indeed, yeah. Very, very strongly indeed. He would have been bitterly opposed to them, I'm sure of that. That he did value the traditions of the bar. And he, of course, operated in a system where there was this division of function between the solicitor and the barrister. And if you'd suggested to Marshall Hall that possibly Arthur Newton, the man who briefed him more than anyone else, should go into court and actually fight the case in the higher courts, he would have been absolutely appalled. And so would Arthur Newton have been appalled. That's not his job.
Right. Thank you very much for that call, Christopher. Thank you, Richard. We want to move on. We have a lot of calls. It's been a very popular series. Julie Russell wants to speak to you now. She's calling from Cottingham, near Hull. Hello, Julie.
Hello.
Hello. What's your question, please?
I'm interested really in two cases. When Marshall Hall defended, like, the first programme, he defended the German prostitute. And then after that, he defended the maid who got made pregnant by her employer. I'm interested in this because he actually defended the working class. Those two are working class people. And after his closing address to the jury, is there any, is this recorded down anywhere? Was it by the journalists who were at the scene, or was it a court? You know, because how do you know he actually said this closing address? Because I think that's what swung the case for these girls.
Yes.
He had me in tears. I had all my friends in tears on the very first one. He did defend that German prostitute,
yes,
you know.
Yes.
Is it fact that?
Well, the difficulty is, you see, that one might expect that there detailed records exist of trials. They don't. In the majority of cases, there is no record whatsoever. So that if we take that first case, the case of Mary Herman, we have some lines spoken by Hall, and one of those lines, I think, is absolutely wonderful, and that's his last comment to the jury. He'd apparently finished his speech, this is we're told this, he'd finished his speech and was sitting down, and then he looked at at poor Mary Herman sitting huddled in the dock weeping, and he looked at the jury and he half rose again, and that's when he said, "Look at her, gentlemen of the jury, look at her. God never gave her a chance. Won't you?" And now we are told that that is what Hall said. But what he said before that, we don't know. So I had the very pleasant, though somewhat difficult task, of inventing material for Hall to, for the actor playing
But
Hall.
Richard, his great theatricality, much is made of it. Did his reputation grow to be so great that he would get off guilty people, even if he believed them to be innocent, just because he was a better performer? He was the best performer.
He would, of course, deny that. He would, of course, deny that most vehemently. Think? I keep my silence on that one. No, I think that all the people, except one, looking back now over the cases, I had serious doubts about the case of Edward Lawrence. That's one you may remember. That's the man who was a wealthy brewer in Wolverhampton, and he is engaged in some sort of argument with his mistress. He's seen coming out of a room, gun in hand, and she's dying in the room. Now, Hall got him off completely.
But you had some doubt.
I've got grave doubts. I think he did it.
Little touch of feet of clay on your great hero, perhaps. Richard Cooper, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
It's been my pleasure.
Yes, we've had a huge response, as we said, and I think a lot of people have greatly enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Natalie.
And as you can see, we've had many calls from viewers all wanting to know if there is, in fact, going to be another series of Shadow of the Noose. Well, apparently it's not been confirmed yet, but maybe the response to the first series will help the schedulers to make up their minds. We've also had lots of calls, as you can see, from callers asking if the theme music from Shadow of the Noose is available commercially. I'm afraid the answer is no. There are no plans at the moment for it to be made available, but you never know.